On this episode of Motorsport Recently, we'll be looking back at the racing news from this week in what is perhaps the most important episode of this show ever. This is Triple Crown Racing. Let's get into it. Hello everybody and welcome to Motorsport Recently. My name is Jack McKenzie and joining me on the mic is the wonderful Chris Whitfield and Caitlin Penny commentary. We are starting a few minutes after we were supposed to start, but that's fine, and this is probably going to be one of the most important episodes of Motorsport Recently because it sees the conclusion of a story that most of us motorsport fans have been following for the past couple of years, and there is also a lot of other exciting news that has been breaking during this week. So we will be getting into that very, very shortly. First of all, we should probably do some mic checks. Everyone is unmuted. We are good to go.
Property, sorry.
Having some technical difficulties right now.
Found it. Great. You can all hear me now, right? Yeah, I think, okay. Yeah, right. I think I've got it sorted. Sorry about that. I think, actually,
Verizon, please give us our money.
I think, guys, that is probably why you couldn't hear me 2 weeks ago, because my OBS was set up wrong. So it wasn't that I forgot to mute myself, it's that I set it up wrong in the first place. But whatever the case, sorry about 2 weeks ago. I am here now, and let's get this podcast on the road. Sorry.
Right, and if my mic isn't making a couple of noises, I just realized it was making some strange noises because my phone was sitting on the wire. So without further ado, Caitlin, if you're ready with the jingle, it's time for our Red Line headlines.
Red line, you know you wanna, you know you wanna, you know you wanna. Headline, it's Red Line headline, it's Red Line headline, it's Red Line headlines. There we go, Red Line headlines, take it away.
Lewis Hamilton took victory at the Hungarian Grand Prix after closing a gap of nearly 15 seconds to Max Verstappen on dying tires. Hamilton won out in a strategy call and decided to make one last pit stop. Verstappen's crew opted not to take the stop and consequently lost out to Hamilton on fresher tires. The results were Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, and Sebastian Vettel. Turning to NASCAR, Chase Elliott held off Martin Truex Jr. to win a spine-tingling conclusion to the Go Bowling at the Glen at Watkins Glen International. It is Elliott's second consecutive win on the New York road course. The results being Chase Elliott, Martin Truex Jr., and third place going to Denny Hamlin. In NASCAR Xfinity, Austin Cindric held off A.J. Allmendinger in what was a thrilling conclusion to the Zippo 200 at the Glen. It was a door-to-door battle between the two drivers. Cindric put Allmendinger slightly offline and used the opportunity to take his first ever win in the Xfinity Series. Austin Cindric held off A.J. Allmendinger, Christopher Bell was third, and Justin Allgaier was fourth. Or was he? Allmendinger, however, finished second on the road, but was excluded for a ride height issue in post-race inspection. Turning to IMSA, in a thrilling fight to the finish, the number 55 Mazda of Team Yost took the victory in the DPI class, ahead of the number 6 Penske Acura to win the road race showcase. The number 55 car winning out by a mere .227 seconds. Pier 1 Matheson Motorsport took victory with Matt McMurray and Patrick Kelly, which extends their point lead in LMP2. Ford Chip Ganassi took a 1-2 finish with the 67 car, the golf-colored Ford GT, coming out on top and taking their second win in a row. Also, the Pfaff Motorsport Porsche, the lumberjack car, as people call it nowadays, of Matt Campbell and Zachary Robichon, took victory in GT Daytona at hand of the defending IMSA class champions Paul Miller Racing in their Lamborghini. The results were the number 55 of Bomarito and Tinknell in DPI, holding off Montoya and Cameron, and third place going to the second Mazda number 77 of Jarvis and Nunez. Matt McMurray and Kelly won over the pole-sitting car in the class, driven by Cameron Castles and James French in LMP2. In GTLM, it was Richard Westbrook holding off Chase Briscoe. Holding off Joey Hand to score the win in GTLM, with the Porsche of Earl Bamber and Lawrence Vantor finishing in third. And in GTD, it was Zach Robichon, Matt Campbell, holding off Brian Sellers and Corey Lewis's Lamborghini, and Robbie Foley and Bill Oberlin's BMW for Turner Motorsport, rounding out the three. And that is your Red Line Headlines.
Nicely done, Chris. I still think that the segment, because of the jingle, should be sponsored by KFC.
KFC got to do with Spa. Oh, sorry, with the Spa. I was just writing Spa-Francorchamps. What's Red Line Headlines got to do with KFC?
I feel like it's a jingle that should, because of the jingle, I feel like it's a segment that should be sponsored by KFC for some reason. This sounds pretty KFC.
Does it? I mean, I can't say I've noticed, but
I don't know. I feel like that's a bit of a strange observation of mine, but anyway, we'll go.
Actually, let's see if we can maybe get Sean Galile to sponsor the podcast.
Actually, that would be pretty cool.
Or what's his version of KFC, the Indonesian one?
Indeed, it's called Jigoni Ayam. I don't think he would sponsor this podcast after the things we've said about him in the past, but, so let's have a look back at some of those headlines. So the Hungarian Grand Prix, what are your thoughts on that terrific battle between Hamilton and Verstappen?
In terms of on-track action, there wasn't very much battling, but it really came down to strategy, which in the past 4 races, we've actually been treated to 4 different types of exciting race. This one mainly dominated by strategy, but who knew a strategy race could be so exciting?
You're very right in saying that we've had 4 different types of exciting race as well, because if you think about it, the last 4 races have been exciting for different reasons. With the Austrian Grand Prix, you had a race with a challenger fighting through from the back in Max Verstappen. With Silverstone, you had 2 cars fighting for the lead and other cars fighting further back as well. It was just a good old brawl at Silverstone. Hockenheim was exciting because you had so many mistakes, because the weather threw up a lot of action, because there were twists and turns. And then as well, the Hungarian threw up action because you had a strategy battle, which is what I was referring to. And to be honest, that is great. And it shows just why you can never give up on Formula 1. If you remember, at the start of the season, people were saying, oh, we're just going to have to sit back and wait for this year to be over because Formula 1 sucks now, and, it's going to be Mercedes domination for the rest, and, everything's rubbish, that kind of thing. Come on, guys.
Got good again.
Yeah, Motorsport and Formula 1 is unpredictable. In every sense of the word. It always will be, it always has been. Motorsport is unpredictable and Formula 1 is unpredictable. So you can never give up on it. And this is exactly what I hoped would happen, exactly what I knew would happen at some point. And this is exactly what we need. So well done, Formula 1. and it's great to see it back to this level. But yeah, what a race that was! Verstappen did so well on strategy. Lewis Hamilton as well, again at the top of his form in that Mercedes. Sebastian Vettel actually did a really good job as well. I think
So did the two
Bottas.
McLarens, actually.
Yeah, indeed, McLaren's always strong. To be honest, I think Bottas could have challenged. He could have done it at least a bit better, if not for that swipe from Leclerc on the first lap. Bottas was actually doing quite well himself, especially in qualifying. But yeah, no, what a race weekend! Fantastic to see.
Can we talk about NASCAR Xfinity for a second? Because when I wrote this a couple of days ago, the write up for the Xfinity series, I didn't know that AJ Allmendinger had been disqualified. So after the race happened, did that break, Chris?
Very shortly after, in fact, they actually said during the they said it was because of a ride height issue, but AJ Allmendinger actually said that it was due to contact. And personally, I think that NASCAR needs to clarify exactly what constitutes constitutes a ride height penalty, because if it's brought on by contact, it should not be a penalty under the rulebook. And this is the second time that the Colleague Racing number 10 has actually been excluded from the race from a race because of in post-race inspection.
Regardless, though, it was still a very exciting battle on the road.
Yeah, it was. Oh, absolutely. And
should we briefly talk about the Cup Series? I felt like a lot of people were hot-headed during the Cup Series race.
Kyle Busch especially.
Actually, exactly. Kyle Busch got tangled up in a lot of things. I know one with Bubba Wallace.
And William Byron.
And turned one twice, actually, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, all I can say to that was I expected better from Kyle Busch.
And then he got rear-ended by someone, and that destroyed the front end of the car behind.
That was Byron.
After Kyle Busch had rear-ended the car in front of him, destroyed his front end, which was causing more problems than it solved. I mean, I know it's NASCAR, I know it's stock car racing, but people should really have chilled out a bit there. But overall, I would say good drive from Chase Elliott.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this time he actually, whereas last year he was basically banking on fuel mileage to get the win, he flat out drove to it like that. And of course, what happens? This big siren at the Firehouse Bar in Dawsonville, Georgia, was ringing because due to tradition, of course. But yeah, on the Kyle Busch thing, I honestly expected better, but some of the driving standards were just shocking.
I'd say the driving standards in the Xfinity race were better. However, there was still quite a lot of hot-headedness in the Xfinity race.
Absolutely, and honestly, Kyle Busch should either honestly, the way he was driving on Sunday, if it was anyone else, they'd be parked. They would be asked to go to the garage for the rest of the race and sit it out.
That being said about NASCAR, now let's just ask ourselves a question: who was showing us, and who was showing up everyone and giving a masterclass lesson on how international prototype racing should work?
It was Mazda.
And IMSA,
proving once
IMSA, I
again,
have to say.
it was Mazda.
Okay.
And we love Mazda.
I was gonna say, was it Cody Ware? I'm joking.
No, but we'll get to that.
We will indeed. Sorry for
Because
the interruption, carry on.
because if you look at IMSA and the WEC in this season and the past season of WEC, that the IMSA is showing what prototype action should look like, and the battle to the end at Road America was absolutely superb.
You know what it reminded me of?
What did it remind you of?
2011 and 2012.
In what
Especially
series?
the American Le Mans series at Road America. The 2012 drag race up the hill, where the Mazda beat the Muscle Milk Honda that day, and that was an absolutely cracking result for them, and it had me on the edge of my seat for the entire race.
And
The entire last stint. Hi, puppy.
Excuse me about Alan there. He's excited about something. Carry on.
That result with Mazda also puts them sort of back in the running for the championship.
Yes.
For Mazda, I think that's 3 in a row.
It is 3 in a row. And conceivably, they could, if they win at what is it? Well, considering the next race is a GT only event at VIR, if they win at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, they have an outside chance to win the championship. I think it might go. Down to the wire between Mazda and Penske.
Be interesting. Ford Chip Ganassi also doing very well with the number 67 car, winning again.
Yep. Basically because Richard Westbrook is an amazing person at saving fuel, and the strategy won out once again for them. So that's what happened there.
And I'm sure you'll be happy with the result in GTD.
Yeah, my boys from Toronto, FAF Racing, winning in GT Daytona in that amazing race car, that little Porsche there, powered by Plaid.
And I'd say that probably brings us to the end of Red Line Headlines, so nice job again. You've done very well with that.
And can I just say, by the way, I didn't get a chance to, before we put a period on that, I didn't get to say this about the Formula One race. Say what you will about Lewis Hamilton, but that was honestly, genuinely one of his best drives that I think he's ever had in the sport.
I have to agree with you on that one. That was fantastic.
Caitlin, do you agree?
Sorry, which series are we talking about?
Formula One. Lewis Hamilton. I was thinking that the fact that he basically this was his greatest drive in his entire career.
I actually haven't seen the race yet. I know everything that happens, and
Oh, what?
Well, it's because, like, my family, I always watch it with my family, and they're really far behind. Like, we only watched the German Grand Prix a few days ago, so, honestly. Yeah. So, I will see it probably tomorrow.
Nice, okay.
Well, you've got time. The next race is when?
Full weeks away.
However, in my opinion, Lewis Hamilton's greatest drive in history is probably, to be honest, I can't think of it off the top of my head. He's had a few pretty brilliant ones. Carry on.
Well, I reckon that wraps it up for Red Line Headlines for this week. Chris, you've done very well with this new segment once again, and it's about time to get into the feature stories. And we start off with some news from Hyundai, which Caitlin will be telling us about.
Indeed. So, Hyundai are talking about getting into electric racing. They say that a new era is dawning at Hyundai Motorsport. For many months, our team in this is a quote, obviously. For many months, our team in Alcino has been working hard on an exciting electric vehicle, and soon we will be able to deliver the fruits and share the fruit of these labours. And that was said by Hyundai Motorsport's team director Andrea Adamo in a statement. He also said, oh no, sorry, unfortunately we don't know what kind of electric racing yet. Hyundai are set to unveil the aforementioned electric racing car at the Frankfurt Auto Show in September. Interestingly, various publications are mentioning the World Rally Championship in relation to the story, so perhaps it could be an electric rally car.
I'm thinking also it could be an ETCR car, because remember, they have the Veloster N TCR. They could basically just take the running gear out of and replace it with an electric motor from the Ioniq, and put N badging on it, and
ETCR has been confirmed, right?
I believe it has, yes.
In that case,
Volkswagen has a couple of cars.
Yeah, no, to be honest, I don't see what else it could be. In terms of the World Rally Championship, actually I can see that happening, because the instant torque would actually be really quite an advantage with rallying, I expect. You know, you don't necessarily need high speed or whatever, it's all about low-end grunt, which is very much what an electric motor has. So I think that would probably be an option, but to be honest, I think the most likely option is ETCR.
Now, we do actually have a small teaser image of the car, and the first thing I notice is that it is very, very low to the ground, perhaps a bit too low to be a rally car. However, apparently Hyundai did actually talk a World Rally Championship when we got that quote. We don't actually have a quote about them talking about the World Rally Championship. It's just that many publications are saying that they hinted at the World Rally Championship at the same time that Andrea Adamo said that. So it could be a World Rally car, or it could be a touring car,
or a rally cross car.
Interesting, actually, that's not a bad shout.
I was thinking that, but to be honest, if it's not going to be a rally car, I don't see why it would be a rallycross car. But whichever the case, yeah, there you
go. Perhaps the major publications have it wrong. Perhaps it is a ETCR or some other kind of touring car. It'll be interesting to see how that works out. If you're watching this later, perhaps you can leave a comment on the video and say what you think Hyundai's new electric racer might be. Should we move on to our second feature story of the day?
I think so.
Oh, this story actually relates to Forza Motorsport 7, and we actually haven't talked about Forza Motorsport 7 very much on this show. And this was a story that came from during the week. So Forza Motorsport 7 received its final update during the week. The update adds a new car, being the Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 Club Sport. That car is, of course, the free car for this month. The biggest change is a new penalty system. Dangerous drivers can now be disqualified from races. This happens after 12 seconds of penalties have been accumulated. After accumulating 10 seconds of penalties, a player will be put on probation. And apparently the penalty system is also used for track extending. The penalty system has been enabled for public lobbies, but can be enabled or disabled for private lobbies. And according to reports, the collision penalties are quite good, but the track extending penalties are rubbish, apparently, from what I've heard from people who have actually used this penalty system.
Uh-oh.
Apparently, you can run the slightest bit off the track and get quite a hefty penalty.
Oh, so it's Project Cars. Okay.
Sounds
well,
like
Project
racing to me, to be honest. You know, They say you cut the
Yes.
course. Yeah, of course I cut the course. I was avoiding this guy who was flying off the curb in front of me. I don't care. They say you cut the course. Slow down, you meanie beanie. Yeah, stuff like that.
No, I think what I've sort of games is racing games that have penalties either don't work or the game doesn't have penalties.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think games should bother with penalties because they just don't work. You know, until you can get a penalty system that doesn't penalize people for stupid reasons, you know, doesn't screw people's races over and make it pretty unplayable, then to be honest, I really think you have to leave it up to the people themselves to race cleanly. And I think, you know, in terms of track cutting, you can put like strips of grass or gravel right by the edge of the circuit to, you know, to make it so that you don't gain advantage through running off. But I suppose then you risk making the track unlike it is in real life. But yeah, no, realistically, the penalty systems in games just don't work yet, and it's going to be a while before they do. So stop
I don't
bothering them
think
with
they
them.
will.
It ruins the game. Yeah.
Problem with them is though, some people they don't like to do league racing. They just like to play around in public lobbies and stuff. But obviously, public lobbies, the driving standards aren't brilliant, so that may be frustrating for people who just want to play casually and not do league racing. Of course, with league racing, you can add penalties afterwards, but people aren't quite as courteous in public lobbies, and also like you said, penalty systems don't really work. Codemasters have been trying to perfect the penalty system in the Formula One game for nearly a decade now, and it still doesn't quite work properly. So sometimes you do think, what is the point?
I totally agree.
Should we move on to some Formula One news?
So, Valtteri Bottas could be in real danger of losing his Formula One seat. Despite winning both the Australian and Azerbaijan Grand Prix, and being on the podium more often than not this season, Toto Wolff still told German newspaper Die Welt that the team is tossing up between Bottas and Esteban Ocon. We have a top driver in Valtteri, we're aware of that, says Wolff. But we also have a young, talented driver in Ocon. He deserves a place in Formula One as well. If there was only one good driver, it would be easy. But that's not the way it is. They both deserve a chance at Mercedes, Toto told the German publication. That has meant that, or this meant that Valtteri Bottas has had to go job hunting, which will, or might have to go job hunting, which will most likely shake up the silly season significantly. It could also mean that Esteban Ocon will be back behind the wheel of a Grand Prix car. Now, personally, I don't think they will get rid of Bottas next year. I think that Bottas has been doing a good job. You know, obviously not as good as Hamilton, but when you have Hamilton as your teammate, you know it's going to be tough. I think Bottas has been doing a good job. I think Toto can see that. You know, Toto's his manager, isn't he? So to be honest, I would be kind of surprised if there's a shake up there for this season. Although I am expecting Esteban to drive for Williams next year.
I think it wouldn't, just from a personal observation, I don't think it would be the best idea to actually swap Valtteri Bottas out for Esteban Ocon, because Valtteri Bottas is clearly established as the number two, which provides sort of political stability within the team. And if they were to get rid of Valtteri Bottas for another teammate who will be looking to win races and challenge Lewis Hamilton, that will make things unstable. Just look back in 2016 when you had two drivers that were just as good as each other and there was no established number two, and things got a bit heated and a bit unstable at Mercedes.
And honestly, this is just another example of Toto Wolff stirring the pot. He always does this, and media outlets keep interviewing him as if as if we, the people who follow him, care about what he says. Honestly, I think he's off his meds again.
No, I disagree. I think that Toto's being very professional there, actually. I think what's happened is that
For once?
the media has approached him about Valtteri because, of course, rumours have been flying around, and as soon as you get a clearly established number 2 driver, suddenly everyone thinks they're, in danger of losing their seat and are going to get the boot as soon as possible. I think someone's approached Toto Wolff, or multiple people have approached Toto Wolff, and Toto said exactly what he needs to say. Yeah, Valtteri's a great driver, but so is Esteban. We're going to have to pick between the two of them, which is exactly what's happening. So, to be honest, that's not Toto stirring the pot at all. If anything, that's the media stirring the pot, and Toto dealing with it professionally.
This does have Valtteri Bottas quite worried, and he actually does have a plan B. He did actually say he has a plan B if he does get dropped by Mercedes. So he was obviously... Well, I'm assuming that it's not just because of that news story that he's looking elsewhere, where a drive might be elsewhere. I'm sure there's been discussions within the team, but it looks like this might be a very real threat for Valtteri Bottas, or at least he sees it that way. Personally, I don't think it's a good idea to replace Valtteri Bottas with Esteban Ocon. And if you look at Williams right now, I mean, I know Williams isn't the strongest seat in Formula One, but it is a seat in Formula One, and Robert Kubica will unfortunately most likely be dropped at the end of the season, and that would make a lot of sense for Esteban Ocon to go into that seat, which I actually thought what was going to happen after he was dropped from Force India.
Well, you see, if you'd asked me last season, if you'd asked me at any point last season, I'd have said, yeah, absolutely, they're going to drop Bottas and they're going to put Ocon in that seat. But it didn't come up last season. Bottas was confirmed for 2019 earlier than most people expected, and he's still here. And he's excelled. The start of this year, he appeared as strong as Hamilton. So I don't see Bottas getting dropped. It's definitely a possibility, but I think it's more likely that Ocon's going to be stuck in the Williams next year, the real milk float.
Which is a massive shame for both Williams and for Esteban Ocon, because Esteban Ocon is an immensely talented driver and he deserves a good seat.
It's a massive downgrade, in fact, because it wasn't. It wasn't too many years ago. He was fighting for the best in the midfield and fighting for points.
I mean, I'd much rather be a race driver than a test driver, even if it's for Williams. I'd take a race.
Unfortunately, it seemed like he was just unceremoniously pushed aside for Stroll because his dad owns the team. That's the problem. That's the biggest problem I have with Lance Stroll is he knew that Ocon had a seat, yet I get why they, I get the whole thing about his dad saving the team and all that. I get it. However,
that's not Lance's fault, Chris. It's every man for himself in Formula One, and Lance Stroll took the seat because it was there. If anything, if you're going to have beef towards anyone for this, it's got to be Lawrence Stroll, so his dad.
No, I was actually going after Lawrence.
Oh, did he say Lawrence? Okay, it sounded like Lance. Sorry. No. To be
yeah,
honest,
no,
I am not a fan of Lawrence Stroll. Less because of that and more because of other reasons. But yeah, whatever the case, it all just didn't work out for Esteban, and I think it really should have done because he has a lot of talent. I think he does deserve another shot in Formula One, and unfortunately, that may well be with a Williams.
I actually have another theory that I've just thought of. Perhaps Esteban Ocon doesn't actually have a place in the Mercedes stable, but perhaps he has a place in the Ferrari stable.
That's been proposed because, of course, we're expecting Grosjean to get dropped at the end of the season. So people have proposed that Ocon might take that seat. Although I doubt it.
Yeah, because he
Ocon,
was talking with Haas, right?
not that I know of. Ocon has been involved with two teams in the past. Lotus, he was a Lotus Young Driver Program. So basically a Renault Young Driver Program when he was in the junior categories. And then as he joined Formula One, he signed up with the Mercedes Young Driver Program. And that's what's propelled him ever since. So to be honest, since he's been on both of those, I don't think Ferrari are going to take him anytime soon.
I beg to differ because I'm just looking at the news. I've just typed in Esteban Ocon Haas into Google, into Google and gone to news. And just by looking at the headlines, it looks like Esteban Ocon is on Günther Steiner and Haas's radar.
I'd be surprised.
Oh, as Murray Walker said, anything can happen in Formula One, and it usually does.
Actually, let me do the voice, huh?
Okay, do the voice.
Remember, anything can happen in Grand Prix racing, and it usually does.
Well done.
And with that, I think we should move on to our next story of the day, which is actually relating to Formula E. And this has been quite an interesting part of the Formula E silly season, which is actually started to develop in the past couple of weeks. Brendan Hartley will be joining Duex Dragon for the 2019-20 ABB Formula E season. Boy, it feels weird saying 2020 season. Hartley fills the second of two Dragon seats, with the second seat still up for grabs. While a move to Porsche looked likely for the New Zealander, both of those seats were filled by Neil Yarni and Andre Lotterer. However, Hartley was confirmed as the Porsche test driver a few months ago. Last year, Dragon had three drivers race for them, those being Maxi Günther, Jose Maria Lopez, and Felipe Nasr. With Dragon has been slightly unstable. He was actually replaced by Felipe Nasr mid-season. Perhaps Günther may be let go, and Hartley replaces him to drive alongside Lopez. That's rather interesting, actually. I didn't get the Porsche drive, but is one of it's actually a reasonably desirable seat in Formula E, so it'll be interesting to see who gets that second seat.
Yeah, I can see Brendan Hartley joining. Hartley's a very quick driver. I think he's going to do better than people expect. I don't think I can see him fighting for the championship, but it's Formula E, so pretty much everyone fights for the championship. I suppose we're going to see next season, but yeah, no. My opinions on Brendan Hartley is that he's very, very good. World class, in fact. Although, not quite Formula 1 level, as we saw.
I don't think
he got a bad rap as a driver. Like, in Formula 1, he got a really bad rap.
I think he came in far too late. I don't think it would have been any better if he'd gone in early, because, he didn't actually have the best junior career at all. He's obviously much better in sports cars and things. So, to be honest, I just think Formula 1's not for him.
As you say, I don't think it's that he wasn't quite Formula 1 level. I just don't think Formula 1 was the series for him, because the driving styles in sports car racing and the driving styles in Formula 1 are quite different. And then also Formula E is probably a good move, because we have seen that a lot of sports car racers have done quite well in Formula E. So Brendan Hartley might do quite well. Unfortunately, he's not in the Porsche seat, which probably would have been better for him, which meant he could fight for wins. I mean, Dragon, they get a couple of wins. They're just not consistent race winners. But you never know. He might take out a few race wins. And my dog's barking.
Doggy!
That's 2 out of...
Hi, Scooby!
That's 2 out of 3 of us who've been interrupted by a pet now. Chris, do you have pets?
I have a cat.
Okay, let's get your cat to interrupt, and then we'll have the full set. Jolly good. So, I think if
Yes.
we've finished with the Formula E article, unless anyone else wants to jump in with anything else, I think we should move on to Chris's next story, which is IndyCar.
Absolutely. Connor Daly will be back in the car for the IndyCar season finale at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. However, it won't just be with Carlin. It will be in the number 25 Andretti Autosport car, sponsored by the U.S. Air Force. Daly raced with Andretti for the Indianapolis 500 and then with Carlin for Texas and for Iowa. He's also, I believe, doing Pocono next weekend. We're thrilled to have Connor, as well as the U.S. Air Force, join us again in Laguna Seca. Connor was a great addition during the month of May, and being able to continue this great partnership with the Air Force at the series season finale is another special opportunity to show our support and honor the brave men and women serving our nation, as Andretti Autosport told Autosport.com. And honestly, he is actually one of the most underrated drivers in the sport. I genuinely believe that. He's
And I would say he was one of the most underrated contestants on The Amazing Race.
He did. I talked to him about that. When I saw him in Toronto, he was actually with the Andretti guys. So I think that may have been some wheels being in motion. I'd like to see him in a full-time ride.
Well, Connor Daly's been in and out of a ride, and I think we've been saying that he's been struggling to get a full-time ride for a long time. If a full-time ride is going to happen, I reckon it will probably be with Carlin and not Andretti, because I don't think Andretti want to run... How many cars do they run? They run 3 cars
Rossi,
currently.
Hunter-Ray, Veach.
They really want to run a 4th car. With Team Penske, they're the only ones that could realistically run.
You forget though, Penske, Ganassi, and Andretti have all run 4 cars in the past, full time.
Then, of course, they opted out of running those 4 cars in favor of running a 3-car team.
Yeah, or in Ganassi's case, a 2.
Do Andretti Autosport? I don't think Andretti Autosport would really want to expand back out to a full-time 4 cars, but it'll be interesting to see how Connor Daly does do at Laguna Seca and that Andretti Autosport team, because it's a strong seat, and I think he's actually been given the equipment to work with now, so he might get quite a good result at Laguna Seca. And
keep in mind also that 25 car has actually been really good in the hands of has been really effective whoever's gotten into it. Like Oriol Servia was really good, was good in it in the start he did in 2015. Stefan Wilson was great in it, nearly won the 500, and of course, let's not forget the accomplishments of Justin Wilson and Simona Di Silvestro. Let's reverse that. Simona Di Silvestro and Justin Wilson.
Yes, yeah.
Who actually... Justin actually finished 3rd in what turned out to be his last ever... was it 3rd or 2nd in his last ever... what turned out to be his last start?
I think it was 2nd, actually.
At Mid-Ohio.
His last finish, rather. Yeah.
Last finish, yeah.
It's a strong car, and I see at least a top 10 finish for Connor Daly. However, I don't see a full-time drive with Andretti Autosport. I feel like his future may lie in a full-time drive with Carlin.
I've seen stranger things, though. He could wind up in the 2nd coin seat, or the third Rahal seat.
I think with the 25 drive at Laguna Seca, he might actually have a chance to prove himself and possibly get a full-time drive at a decent team.
Don't you just love silly season?
Silly
Because
season's fantastic. I love silly season.
and we've got some big silly season news. Let's take it away, Jack.
Now for the story that we have been waiting for 2 years, and this is the story that means that this will probably be the most important episode of Motorsport recently ever. We have been even before the series started, Motorsport fans have been eagerly awaiting an end to the story that began 2 years ago. And because this is such an interesting story, I thought we could all read a bit of this one. During the week, finally announced that they would be entering IndyCar full-time, an event that Motorsport fans have been speculating since Fernando Alonso contested the Indianapolis 500 2 years ago.
First of all, spectaculating, which is a great word, by the way.
Spectaculating. That is a great word.
Spectaculating.
That's my brilliant writing, by the way.
No,
Yeah,
don't delete it from the doc. It's a great word. Spectaculating.
It's like speculating, but spectacular.
That should be added to the dictionary. I think that's brilliant. I'm the new William Shakespeare.
100%. Fantastic.
Before we get into that, Chris, what do we know so far about this?
So what do we know so far? McLaren have partnered with Schmidt-Peterson Motorsport to form Arrow McLaren Schmidt-Peterson Motorsport, and has effectively created an entirely new team. The team will also be switching to Chevrolet engines from Honda this year. Contrary to popular belief, SPM wants to hold on to James Hinchcliffe, despite the change in engine supplier. Hinchcliffe is also considering breaking his ties with Honda to stay with the team, a fact he actually confirmed on his Instagram. It is, however, unclear on what Marcus Ericsson will be doing. However, he has been in contact with other teams in the IndyCar series, and adding to that, they have actually also said that they will honor the commitment to Robert Wickens when he returns to the sport. They will honor his commitment to perhaps run in that seat in his car.
Yeah, and it'd be great to see Wickens back anyway, but of course, in his own time, needs to get better soon. But
absolutely.
So what of Fernando Alonso? Well, Alonso's situation is not, and never has been, entirely clear. Over the past 2 years, he's made it abundantly clear that he wishes to win the Indianapolis 500. He's touched on the idea of a full-time drive a couple of times, but has never actually committed to anything. Zach Brown did say that McLaren will have a home for him in IndyCar if he does make that decision. The doors are always open for Fernando, said Zach. He's obviously well aware of what we're doing here, and I'll be seeing him later in the year, and we'll be discussing our plans and his plans, and see if those converge at any point, Zach Brown told Racer. I personally think that Fernando really should do a full season of IndyCar if he wants to win the Indy 500. I think that the extra oval running would very much help him. I think that him getting used to the car and the team would really help him. To be honest, I don't know why he's not going for a full season, because if the door's wide open, then why doesn't he just take that? It's IndyCar. It's the Indy 500. Do it, Fernando, you daft fish.
I think it's because he might actually be retiring soon. I don't think he actually wants to commit to the season if he just wants to win one final race before he retires. Now, on this story in general, I feel like after waiting for 2 years, doing so many episodes of Motorsport recently where we've covered Fernando Alonso's future, where we've covered McLaren's future, where so many people have talked about this, we almost have a final definitive end to this story, and that feels really, really good. However, I know it's not quite over yet, because we still need to work out where James Hinchcliffe, Marcus Ericsson, and Robert Wickens factor into, and Fernando Alonso for that matter, where they all factor into this, and that it's going to be incredibly exciting to see how that unfolds.
And
I think it's time for Nando Watch, don't you?
actually, I was going to put a period on this because, there are a couple of seats in silly season that are open. Santino Ferrucci's been shopping around to different teams. Perhaps in a bid to either ask Dale for more time, or he's been looking at perhaps a third Rahal seat. This is what I know so far about IndyCar silly season. Pato O'Ward and Colton Herta have actually been linked to the McLaren seat, to the second McLaren seat, rather.
Is of course if Marcus Ericsson leaves.
Yeah.
Marcus Ericsson has been shopping.
Also been
Go ahead.
the Toro Rosso Formula One drive, so that may be interesting to look out for.
Replacing who? Replacing who, though?
Probably Albon for next season, or Gasly, if Gasly gets dropped entirely from the program. So, yeah, sorry.
And, that's okay. And, the whole thing with, the biggest problem I find with this is the, McLaren and Honda rivalry.
That's pretty much Alonso's fault, really, because that's his own doing. The reason that
Zach Brown can make all the comments he wants, but the thing is, A, mechanical failures can happen. B, I think now with basically they're forced to go to Chevrolet because Zach Brown because of disparaging comments about the Honda power plant, and
I don't think that's Zach Brown's doing, because I think Honda and Fernando Alonso have made it very clear that they do not want to work with each other, because Fernando Alonso said so many bad things about Honda, and then Honda were like, well, we don't want to hear this anymore. You're just you're just bad press, really. So they don't want to work with each other, and that's why they ran the Chevrolet they ran the Chevy Carlin at this year's Indianapolis 500, and they couldn't reform the partnership with Andretti Autosport because Andretti didn't change to Honda. And as a result of what Fernando has been saying since, I believe, 2017, actually, no, earlier than that.
It started with the GP2 engine comment.
Been saying pretty much since 2015, he's set himself up for that, and he's set McLaren up for it. I don't think Zach Brown's got anything to do with it.
Yeah,
but
to be honest, it was mostly McLaren's fault anyway. You know, I think they rushed.
Yeah,
Honda,
I
think they rushed Honda. I think they asked too much from Honda. I think they really didn't do Honda any favors. And
they designed the car to fit the engine, not the other way round.
You mean the other way around?
Oh, I got it back. Strike that, reverse it. So much time and so little to do. Strike that, reverse it. They designed the engine around the car. I still got it wrong.
No, so basically they instructed Honda to do something impossible in such a short period of time because they'd already designed their car and there was no changing it, even if it was going to make the engine explode and stuff. And Honda had to just work with it so that the engine didn't explode. And what do you know? They didn't.
And it was on.
I wonder what's happening with Honda now.
And it was a PR fire that was quite similar to the one that was burning out of the back of the McLaren for about 4 years.
Very good, very good. Yeah, that is actually why the Honda is doing so much better now with the Red Bull teams. So yeah, no, great to see them doing better. But yeah, no, McLaren and Fernando Alonso in particular really didn't do Honda and their relationship with Honda any favors whatsoever. But yeah, I think it's probably now time for Nando Watch, seeing as we've basically started talking about Nando Watch stuff already, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Nando Watch. Nando, your favorite IndyCar driver. We're up to date with where Nando is today. Fernando Alonso's my favorite IndyCar driver. He'll win the race and take trophies back to Spain. Nando Watch, we'll keep you updated on anything Fernando decides to do. Nando Watch, Nando the champion at least. He's not still driving GP2.
Nando Watch indeed. That was a patriotic Spanish version of the Nando Watch anthem. And also,
And in fairness, it's actually my favorite of the two jingles.
Thanks, Chris.
We've been waiting to debut that for so long. It was so good. I hope you like that jingle, everyone. That's a very nice job from Caitlin there.
Thank you very much.
Anyway, right.
Who wants?
Shall I take this one?
Fernando news, and indeed, I think you should take it, Jack. Sorry.
Right. After dropping what a few publications are taking as a hint, it has been predicted that Fernando Alonso's next career move will be a shot at the Dakar Rally. In a Q&A session, Fernando Alonso said that his next career move would be quite difficult and that it would require him to dedicate himself to it for several months. He has also been testing the Toyota Hilux rally machine with Gazoo, and GP Blog has actually said that a Dakar announcement is only days away. So that might be why he's not committing to a full-time IndyCar drive, because he's trying to do the Dakar.
I think he should focus on one thing at a time. Like, yeah, he can win the Indy 500, but in my opinion, not if he doesn't do a full-time IndyCar drive. So yeah, gotta get that sorted out. In terms of Dakar, though, I'm not surprised. I can definitely see him doing that. I can see him doing the World Rally Championship. I think that he is going to get on really, really well in both of those. I think he's going to take to it like a duck to water, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he goes. Although realistically, as much as it would be great to see him in rallying, and as much as that is going to be interesting, I think he really should focus on one thing at a time. Come on, Fernando, win the Indy 500 first, then do rallying, okay?
The thing is, I think with the full-time IndyCar drive, if he just wants to win the Indianapolis 500 in 2020. However, Indy is the first oval race of the season, so he doesn't just want to do a heap of road course races because he already knows how to do that. First, because they took Phoenix off the calendar.
Oh, did they? Okay, actually, that makes more sense.
Yeah, because they replaced Phoenix.
Right, well that does make more sense actually. Sorry, I actually didn't know that they'd taken that off the calendar. Although looking at it now, it appears that the provisional schedule for next year only has 4 ovals on it. My goodness. Oh, and those being
Indy,
yeah.
Toronto, Indy, Pocono,
Indy, Texas,
Iowa,
and Gateway. No Pocono as of yet. I don't know if that's final.
There is also talk of perhaps some. They've been in talks with Richmond.
Okay, well I don't know if this schedule is final yet, but whatever the case, there doesn't appear to be a Pocono on it. That's sad. Although I'm glad to see Texas returning.
They are actually in talks with Pocono as well. Okay, according to Adam Stern, they are in talks with Pocono.
Good.
Perhaps a 6 oval schedule would be... A 6 oval schedule would actually be preferred, I think, because 7 if you include Michigan. Indycar, please come back to Michigan. I want my
I'm in a
Michigan
train
500
station.
back.
I feel like
I
I'm in a
want my
train
Michigan
station.
500. Yes. I want my Michigan 500.
Anyway, right. So do we think the Dakar thing is really going to happen?
Well, Formula One drivers have actually won at Dakar before. Among some of them, didn't Jackie Ickx win a race for Porsche
I believe he
at
did.
Dakar?
Wow, I'm not sure at all. I know that Carlos
Yes, he
Sainz.
did.
I know that Carlos Sainz won it, but that was Carlos Sainz Senior, not Junior. So not the Formula One
Yeah.
driver, but the Formula One driver's dad.
There was also a Formula One driver by the name of Jean-Louis Schlesser, who won, I believe, 4 straight in his own buggies. They were basically like Renault-bodied buggies. And he actually won 4 of them on the trot in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay, I've just done some research. It turns out that Jackie Ickx never. Oh wait, he did win at 83. But it wasn't for Porsche. It was actually for Mercedes in a 280 GE. However, he did drive Porsches to second place. He did drive a Porsche to second place in 86, and also a Peugeot to second place in 89. So there you go.
Right.
Oh yeah,
So
Jean-Louis Schlesser won it twice. My apologies, Jack. I kind of butted in there.
Twice? I thought it was 4 times.
Twice. Sorry. No, he won it twice. Also, Carlos Sainz has won it twice, but that's Carlos Sainz Senior, and those are the F1 drivers who have won it. My apologies, Jack.
And I also believe there was some talk of Fernando Alonso also doing the Morocco rally, because it's apparently the rally that everybody uses to get ready for the Dakar rally. But I mean, the Dakar rally is a completely different experience to Grand Prix racing or IndyCar racing. So what do we think his chances are? Do we think he can win it?
Well, the problem with Dakar is it's unpredictable. You cannot even, like, not even the drivers can predict even finishing a stage, much less winning it. Actually, more to the point as well, it's not just a race of survival for the cars, it's a race of survival for the drivers. They have, last couple of years, they've had at least one casualty during the rally itself. And they've had to move. They moved to Africa they moved from Africa to South America. And I think they're back to Africa now?
Not sure, sorry.
I'll have to check on that. I'll have to check on that one.
Yeah,
But watch this space.
Yeah, no, I think he definitely can win it. I just don't know if he will. We'll have to see.
Okay. And that probably does it for Nando. That probably does it for this week's episode of Nando Watch with the patriotic jingle. Which
It is, by the way, it'll be in Riyadh.
Oh.
It'll be in Saudi Arabia.
That sounds very
January
right,
5th to the 17th.
Good news.
What?
There's a new Dacia Sandero RS hot. There's a new Dacia Sandero RS hot hatchback.
Oh, it does.
Great!
Involve a Dacia, nice. Or a Dacia, as it's actually supposed to be pronounced.
Bad news.
Oh no.
Not on sale in the UK, so sorry, Caitlin, you can't buy one.
Aww.
Ah.
I mean, it would have been...
Anyway, moving on.
Okay.
Yes, because it's now time for our final segment of the day. Caitlin, if you're ready with the jingle, it's time for...
Miscellaneous stories and points that we missed and therefore recovering OTM. Boom.
There we go.
Bing! And we start actually with some with some IMSA news. And we actually kind of touched on it a little bit. There's actually going to be a new entry in the LMP2 class, involving NASCAR Cup Series team Rick Ware Racing. Per Sportscar 365, they will be campaigning 2 Ligier JSP2 Nissan cars in the LMP2 AM class in the Asian Le Mans Series, and as Cody Ware actually confirmed to me on Instagram, that they plan on running LMP2 in the IMSA WeatherTech Championship as well, also in a Ligier. So that's actually kind of exciting a little bit, that's a bit of an exciting bit of news there. Hopefully, and now the details of it will be, they will be running. Let me try that again. They'll be in the P2 AM class for previous generation LMP2 machinery, as evidenced by the Nissan at the end of it. They will be running with Euro International, and Cody Ware will be the star driver of one of the full season Asian entries.
First of all, can we just mention, well done, Caitlin, on the jingle for this week.
Yay!
Yay! Finally.
Oh, because I actually got the jingle ready this week.
Very well.
I honestly think that's the first time I've ever remembered to do that.
I think you got it once, but then Chris talked through the jingle.
I did.
Yeah, I think so. Because you were so used to me not getting it that you thought I hadn't got it again, but I had. So yeah. Whatever the case.
And I didn't even need to say my favorite Christmas song in order to trigger that. My favorite Christmas song being, of course, Jingle Bells.
I get the hint, Chris. Carry on.
It's good. Finally, we have a third car in LMP2, because I'm getting a bit sick of the of just one. I've just.
And also there's also Inter-Europol has also announced the intention to contest the Asian Le Mans Series, also with Ligier. Now, I'm not sure if this is just a ploy on Onroke's part to get customers interested in the JSP 217, but all the power to them, honestly, because it's become quite a bit of an Orica class as of late, and it's become a bit of an Orica dominated class as of late, LMP2, and
it has, hasn't it? Yeah.
And there's actually been I'd like to add something else. Apparently, the WEC, this broke earlier today, the WEC has added a podium prize for the highest placed bronze driver.
Oh, nice.
Which means the 4 drivers that will be competing for the prize will be Frits van Eerd from Racing Team Nederland, Mark Patterson from High Class Racing, Cool Racing's Alexander Kwani, and Setilar Racing with AF Corsa, Roberto Lacorte will be running. It'll be down to 3 though at Shanghai, because Jo van Eertert will be replacing Van Eerd at Racing Team Nederland for that weekend. And that is that is the sports car news for this week.
Actually, no, it's not.
For now.
For now.
For now.
Because after our next story, we will actually have a little bit more sports car racing news. Caitlin, would you like to tell us about this next point?
So, the Mexican Grand Prix contract has been extended through to 2022. Not much to say about that, apart from the fact that we weren't really expecting it before, but it has now been announced, so jolly good, expect more Mexican Grand Prix action for the next couple of years.
Excellent.
I'm glad it's on the I'm glad it's on the calendar still. I actually, it's one of my favorite races.
I do like the...
I just wish WEC could do it.
Yeah, I do like the track. I don't like the way the championship tends to be decided there, or has been on 2 occasions.
Well, the problem is that's like Lewis Hamilton books the flight for his personal DJ just to play that. Ugh, doesn't do that again.
I thought we did have a big long discussion about that last week, so let's not get started on that again.
Also, I don't really like the arena section much, but the rest of the track's great. Love it.
Oh, I love the arena section.
The arena section actually, the arena section's been used before. Like even before Formula 1, Champ Car ran it.
Oh wow, okay.
When they ran at Mexico City, the only people that didn't was NASCAR between 2005 and 2008.
I think
when they ran here.
And I think IndyCar are actually considering going back to the Mexican Grand Prix circuits. They said, I remember like a year or 2 ago, that they were in talks with Mexico and they were thinking about going back there at some time in the 2020s. Anyway, I think we should move on to the other bit of sports car racing news that we mentioned before, because Rebellion has announced its drivers for its single car entrant into the WEC this coming season. Norman Nato, Bruno Senna, and Gustavo Menezes will take the driving duties for Rebellion's sole entry. My apologies. And it looks like everybody else has been yeeted. So that's a bit sad. But I'm glad they've held on to Bruno Senna, and I'm glad they're giving Norman Nato a chance.
We've also got some news from the Blancpain GT America series, as Real Time Racing has replaced Brett Curtis, who was injured earlier this season, with Mike Headland in the Pro-Am Acura NSX. He'll be partnering Dane Cameron in that car. And there's also some Bathurst news involving the IGTC style sporting regs. Oh boy. According to Sports Car 365, they will be running with a set of revised regulations, aligning with the Intercontinental GT Challenge. Now, this will mean, and Jack, this is I decided to give this to you now. I hope you're sitting down. A 4-minute technical pit stop rule and maximum driver stint length time will be enforced for 2020. For the Bathurst 12-hour.
But okay, that's a bit.
There will
weird.
also be this will force teams to make an extended service during the race, mirroring the 5-minute technical rule at the 24 hours of Spa. This can be taken any time before the end of the 11th hour.
That is rubbish. That's not good, because take away some 5 minutes of battling that could be happening.
Additionally, 2 Joker stops without a minimum service time must be taken in each half of the race.
Oh, goodness gracious me. Why are they adding all these gimmicks?
And then the drive time requirement will see a cap of 65 minutes, with drivers not permitted to complete more than 2 consecutive stints without a 1-hour rest period.
Surely the
Um,
Joker stops takes away the whole point we have minimum pit stop times in the first place, right?
Yes. Now, a drive-through penalty will be dealt for a stint exceeding this by less than 5 minutes, while that increases to a 30-second stop and hold for stints lasting more than 70 minutes at a time. Now, Class B, which of course has been, since they switched to GT, it's been Porsche Cup cars, have been replaced with Lamborghini Super Trofeo cars for 2020.
That's not a good idea. That's not a good idea because the thing is, here in Australia, Porsche Carrera Cup is a very popular category, and Lamborghini Super Trofeo is non-existent in Australia. So how on earth do they expect to get entries for a class that doesn't exist here in Australia?
And they're more expensive, and they're
Yep.
wider
And they'll be in the way more.
because they're closer to the GT3's lap times.
Elsewhere in the field, the GT3 Class A category will be split into 3 driver categorization-based subdivisions, but with the addition of a Silver Cup alongside Pro and Pro-Am. GT4 cars will continue to race in Class C, while the Mark Car Australia Specials, mostly Mark II cars, will be in the Invitational class. Oh boy. All I can say is...
Please get your hands off my race, SRO. Please don't touch it.
This is a widely and if you can believe it, Stefan Rattel after this has gotten ratioed. Basically, he's basically said, he's basically saying, right, we're gonna do it our way, so right, we're gonna do it our way. If you don't like it, nuts to you. Just I'm Stefan Rattel, I run the damn thing, so this is my race now.
Bug off, basically, yeah.
Can we move on before I have an aneurysm?
Now, before we kill Jack, they're overregulating one of the greatest races in the sport at the moment, and they'll be lucky to get 36 cars, especially in the other classes, because the Mark IIs, they're just one car, the Mustang. That's the Mustang body. Because I don't think the Mark I, Mazda 3, or Focus are actually eligible.
That's rubbish. That is absolutely rubbish. Anyway, I think we should move on because we're actually doing a point now, which we don't do points in miscellaneous stories and points that we missed in therefore covering now, which is surprising. Because at the start of just before the show started, George Chewins wanted us to talk about. Well, he actually had a question for us, and his question was: will Maggots and Beckett's be flat out with the introduction of ground effects next year? Possibly.
So, I don't think so. Well, I very much don't think so, because firstly, anyone who's ever driven a car around Maggots and Beckett's on a racing game, even if it's a modern car, one with a lot of downforce, they know that Maggots and Beckett's is far from being flat and always will be. Well, I'd say always will be. We don't know what cars are going to be like in the future. But no, it's far from being flat. And to be honest, ground effects, you say that, but you forget we're also losing a lot of aero from the front wing and the rear wing. And to be honest, I don't think there's going to be much of a change in terms of cornering speed at all next season. I think it's going to be very similar to what we've got now. And 2021, I think we might even lose cornering speed because of the thinner tyres. So, yeah, no. Nowhere near. Sorry.
Your thoughts?
It's not 1982 anymore. Obviously. I don't see it. I don't see them. I see the lap times growing, if anything. Like the races, like the times getting slower. I just don't see. I just don't see it. I don't see them going flat out through Beckett's and Maggots, and because that's a different set of corners. That's a difficult set of corners in a touring car, much less a Formula One car. Like, you can't do anything. You can't go through that complex flat out in anything. Even if you're in a Citroen C1, for God's sake,
Yeah.
you can't go flat out through there, or you'll roll the car,
Sorry, not gonna
Exactly.
happen.
or you'll go off the
Yeah.
circuit.
Sorry, not gonna happen. Moving on.
Anyway, that was a good little discussion point. We could actually have points in miscellaneous now. So if you'd like
Because
to,
miscellaneous stories and points.
us to talk about, if you'd like us to touch on any more discussion points in the future, message me throughout the week, and I'm sure we could talk about it. Anyway, Caitlin, we have a bit of news.
Yes, so aside from Formula One, we have, of course, been having the usual junior categories taking place. In Formula 2, they were racing at the Hungaroring, and we had Nicholas Latifi winning race 1 from Nick de Vries and Jack Aitken, and then race 2 was actually won by Mick Schumacher. So Schumacher wins for the first time in Formula 2, and very much energizes the Mick Schumacher hype train, despite the fact he's still only 11th in the championship, so don't get your hopes up too high just yet. Second place was Nobuharu Matsushita. Third place was Sergio Sette Camara, meaning the championship is still De Vries, Latifi, Sette Camara, Giotto, Aitken. In terms of Formula 3 as well, they were also racing at the Hungaroring. Race 1 was won by the Danish driver Christian Lundgaard, taking his first victory of the season, followed by Max Futrell and Jake Hughes. And race 2 was won by Marcus Armstrong, taking his first win of the season. The New Zealand, the Kiwi driver. Actually isn't... Huh, yeah, he is New Zealand. I always thought he was Australian, but he's not. Okay. Yeah. Second was Leonardo Pulcini, and third, once again, was Jake Hughes, meaning it's still Robert Schwartzman leading the championship, despite his retirement in race 2, followed by Yuri Vips, Jan Darivala, Marcus Armstrong, and Christian Lundgaard. The third category, however, that I'm really interested in is the Porsche Super Cup. Because, of course, if you remember, I announced this in the last episode, or the last episode that I was in. However, unfortunately, I found out that my microphone wasn't on. So, unfortunately, you didn't hear that, but whatever the case, Rudy Van Buren, who is someone that I've raced against and commentated on, was taking part. Of course, Rudy, you know, from winning the World's Fastest Gamer Championship in 2019, and going on to compete at the Race of Champions for Team Sim Racing. And he made his real life racing debut at the weekend as well. And he placed 23rd out of 29 finishes, so not too bad for your first race. You know, it's certainly not setting the world alight, but to be honest, Rudy Van Buren is a role model anyway, because being able to go from sim racing to real life racing like that is fantastic. And of course, his I should also point out that his teammate from the Race of Champions in 2017, who was, of course, Enzo Benito, he has also gone on to do real-life racing as well, racing in the KTM Expo Cup and the Grip G1 series in Italy. So, great to see both of those guys in racing. Well done to Rudy Van Buren, and I'm very proud to have raced against him.
Okay, that's good news for Van Buren, and we have one final, just nice little story before we end off.
Can I just say first of all, how great it is to see a Schumacher back on the podium.
Yeah, it is. It's
Like,
good. It's very good.
Yeah.
I think that's actually the first time that a Schumacher has actually won in Formula 2.
You know what I've just discovered? Despite the 23rd place, Actually, no points were awarded because the race completed less than 50% distance. No.
Oh my goodness, that's
Oh.
so unfortunate.
I mean, okay,
Oh god, goodness me.
admittedly, he wouldn't have scored points anyway, but still, it's like, still.
Oh,
I'm guessing it
Anyway.
was because of dire conditions.
Well, it was the Hockenheim, so it would have been the same day as the Formula One race. So yeah.
Oh, right. But all the
Anyway.
power to Rudy.
Anyway, we have one just final little story before we end off and roll the. Actually, do we have credits?
Yes, yeah, we do.
Oh, we do have credits. Okay, okay. Well, this was just one final little story I thought we'd end off with before I just make a couple, just say a couple of things that we need to say. After Brendan Hartley was announced as the Joax Dragon driver, I posted on Instagram to announce that, and I posted a photo of him with hair in the announcement post, and GeoX Dragon actually saw that post and responded to it saying we should have used that one instead, that photo instead to announce him, and then just like an oh well emoji. So GeoX Dragon getting involved with the conversation and seeing that photo of Brendan Hartley, I posted it. But anyway, whatever the case, I thought I'd just say that as like another point to add to miscellaneous stories and points. And I think that just about does it for this episode of Motorsport Recently. We'll actually be taking a break for the next couple of weeks because Caitlin's going on holiday, and it will be good for Chris and I to get some much needed rest for a little while, and that means I won't have to get up so early in the mornings.
Well, that and also we're kind of timing it so that we're actually kind of syncing it around the Formula One summer break.
We kind of are, actually. Thank you. I have some people to thank before we end off. Thank you very much to Mclaren for making the graphic you've been seeing on screen at the moment. We don't actually have posters at the moment. That's because I've got him working on the WEC season review, and I will have him working on the Formula E season review and F1 mid-season review. So the next couple of weeks will give us time to work on that. I've been Jack McKenzie, and joining me on the mic has been my usual partners in crime, the wonderful Chris Whitfield and Caitlin Penny commentary. It's been a good episode. A story has been rounded off, and that feels very good indeed. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Ta-ra!
Ta-ta.